What's up, dudes? We are on to stage 1 of the new hypertrophy program. Maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. This one's gonna be a little bit different. It's gonna be posterior, anterior chain. The first day is gonna be posterior chain. Now what that means is we're working all of the muscles located in the posterior section. Your hamstrings, your back, your glutes, your triceps, your traps, all of it. We're gonna be busting them all out with some big compound movements to start out. Let's get going. So deadlift's probably the most well-known posterior chain exercise. It's a big lift. That's why we're starting out with the deadlifts. Hamstrings, glutes, quads, back, traps. It's gonna take a lot of posterior chain muscles to perform this lift, so that's why it's a posterior chain exercise.
With this hypertrophy plan, we've got our logbook in the back of it. And for this one, I'm really gonna be focusing on progressive overload. So every week I'm gonna try to get just a little bit higher. A great way to help with that is tracking your weights. We're gonna be doing this stage for 3 weeks. So the goal is every single week, getting just a little bit heavier in the weight while keeping the rep range the same. Really trying to focus on that hypertrophy, the strength and muscle size.
We got the T-bar rows next. It's 4 sets, 8 reps, just like the deadlifts. Pretty big movement here, specifically targeting the back, your lats, your traps, your rear delts. So again, all those posterior muscles really love this exercise here. And as you can tell, we're just using a landmine. Got a little nifty setup. If you don't have one of these, you can just shove a barbell in the corner, as easy as that. So you're in that bent over position, which is really gonna require you to have a lot of core strength holding that bent over position, because you have to stabilize that spine as you're rolling all that weight up. So it's put a lot of stress on the body as you're pulling that weight. And I mean, it's again, one of those exercises that just make you feel powerful, make you feel good, make you feel buff.
Oh, moving on to hip thrusts, another really big compound exercise. This one is focusing primarily on the glutes. The glutes, of course, is the largest muscle group in the body. It's responsible for a lot of day-to-day activities, so it's one that you want to constantly work, constantly, maybe not for everyone grow, but constantly keep a staple of your workout and your exercises. This one can be a little uncomfortable if you're just using the bar, especially if it's kind of pressing up against your hips. So you can see we got a little pad here. That's what we would advise. It just makes it a little easier, and when that's easier, you can focus more on the important part, which is the lift.
So doing the face pulls with the cable is probably the most well-known ones, but the good thing is you can do it with several different variations, really. I mean, you can do it with a barbell, you can do it with a dumbbell. So if you don't have a cable machine, there's other ways to do it. But what makes this so good is because as you're pulling the weight, your elbows are flaring really wide. So typically if you're doing a row more down here, lats are gonna start to take over. All of a sudden you're changing the angles of your arm. All of a sudden, all the way up here, really gonna be hitting those posterior delts, the traps, more that upper back area. So that's what's good about changing the angles up, doing different exercises, and face pulls, definitely a good one.
Look at that glorious posterior. It's a big slab of muscle, all working in unison to create a physique unlike the world has ever seen.
That's what you need. Need that voiceover, the epic voiceover. Thankfully, Hudson's here to do it for me.
No posterior muscle group can hide from this workout. We just took care of the rear delts, which are kind of a muscle group which can be neglected. Triceps, maybe not so much, which are the focus of the skull crushers, which we're performing now. But of course, in regards to the arms, sometimes they can, because a lot of focus sometimes is put on the bicep. Of course, the tricep is 2/3 of the arm. So you don't want to forget that one either. It, of course, also helps on really great lifts such as bench press and many others. So we're really hitting everything here today in regards to making sure that we build a complete physique. Oh man, couldn't forget the shrugs. Another great posterior exercise. The rep scheme is going to be just a little bit higher. So we're going to be doing 10 reps for all of these isolations, and then finishing with a great core exercise again, focusing on posterior with the Supermans. That one's gonna be 3 sets, 15 reps. Oh, there's a few exercises that for me have always been a little bit of an uphill battle, and front squats is one of them. It's an exercise, in my personal opinion, that doesn't ever feel completely comfortable. It's a little bit like Zercher squats. It's a little bit like barbell hack squats. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. And you wanna warm up, you wanna get that mobility, because that's gonna be instrumental in ensuring that this exercise is performed in a comfortable and safe manner.
A couple things to remember in the front squats is that your torso is going to be very upright. Now, with the typical barbell, the back squats there, a couple of versions you can do that as the high bar, which your torso is decently vertical on the high bar squat, or the low bar, which that's more of a bent over position there. But with the front squats, it's always going to be a very vertical torso. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways you can maintain a vertical torso is getting a pretty wide stance there, because what you want to do is squat almost like between your legs there, so you can keep that really upright torso very straight, because if you start to bend over, of course the bar is going to want to roll off. Two different ways to hold the bar, and more that clean grip here, which if you don't really have very good wrist mobility, might be a little difficult to get into, or the cross here, which is what I do. It's a little bit more comfortable for me, and you can really hold that bar against really your throat. So it can get a little uncomfortable there, because the bar is literally like, you know, pushed pretty tight against your throat there, but it really has to be that way, or else it's gonna wanna fall forward. So, you know, this is decently heavyweight, at least for us, 185 pounds. Oh, and you gotta keep that nice tight core and brace to really stabilize this movement. Oh yeah, there we go. And that can feel very uncomfortable. It is something to get used to. That's why it's always good to start with a little bit lighter weight, to feel it out, to gain that confidence in every lift, especially this one. Some people might watch this and see what we did on front squats, 185 pounds, and then see what we're doing on bench press, 225 pounds. They're like, how the hell is your chest stronger than your legs? Well, our chest is not stronger than our legs. The front squat, there's a lot that goes into it. It's very unstable and kind of a compromised position exercise. The bench is almost like the leg press for the legs. So of course the leg press, we could probably leg press close to 1,000 pounds. And that's why you'll see the differences in weights. Front squat, entirely different kind of movement. There's so much that goes into it. You're gonna have to really use your core, your stability, your balance, your breath, your bracing, you know, holding the bar into position right on your clavicles. The bench press is pretty simple movement. You're nice and stable against a really big flat bench here, and you're just pressing the weight up. And that's that simple, really. But with this, again, anterior portion, the chest, hitting this, one of the best exercises for the chest, in our opinion, at least for that size, that strength. And that's why we love this one.
We're moving on to the shoulders. We're hitting all three heads of the deltoids with the seated barbell shoulder press. The difference here being you're not going to be able to cheat with your legs. An overhead press can easily turn into a push press if you're not being careful. With this one, you can't use your legs at all. So it is all in those shoulders. Of course, also with some stability coming from the engagement of your core. So all around an excellent variation, and one that's sure to build those boulder shoulders. And he's got the mobility to get under the bar afterwards.
This our delts.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Got my little superhero curl going on my head.
That's what happens.
That's what happens when you start doing a Buff Dudes plan. You turn into a superhero. Yeah. Moving on to the isolations, we did the alternating front raises, really focusing on the anterior deltoid. Now we're moving on to the barbell bicep curls. One of the greatest exercises in order to really maximize bicep development. Of course, it's isolating the muscle itself. That is why it is always a staple of our programs, including this one.
Sometimes you just gotta screw with the weights. Make them feel like they're winning, when in reality,
we're winning. That that may look like a strange exercise and maybe even a little bit of an easy one, but once you get into those higher reps, it's anything but. It's the anterior tibialis raises, which we're all about anterior and posterior. So of course, when you do the plantar flexion of the ankle, you know, it's more about focusing on the calf raise. When you do the anterior version of that, it would be the anterior tibialis raise. So we're all about positives and negatives, opposites, and that's exactly what we're doing today. We're doing the opposite of what you would be doing on a posterior with the calf raise.
Last exercise is gonna be the accordion crunches, really focusing on the abs, the abdominals, anterior portion of the body, of course. 15 reps, 3 sets. These feel good. I love these. And that wraps up the second day, the anterior chain workout. We'll see you again for posterior. Oh yeah.
It's day 3 and we're back to posterior. We're starting with one of our favorite upper body weight exercises of all time. That is gonna be pull-ups. We're doing 4 sets, 8 reps. Pull-ups can be a tough one. It is one of the most strenuous exercises you can do. So if you need a little assistance, of course, there's a few other ways of doing it. You can have mobility bands. This is a really great training tool in order to help assist you with your pull-ups. Of course, you just take the band like this on your knee. It's gonna make it a little bit easier, and the more confident you get, you can begin to use smaller and smaller bands until you are ready for your first pull-up. Again, it's an exercise that we highly recommend. We've used it for years with great benefits, and that's why we're starting off day 3 with the pull-up.
Next exercise is gonna be the Romanian deadlifts. This is an amazing posterior chain exercise, very similar to the deadlifts in the manner of what muscles it's targeting your glutes, your hamstrings, your lower back, a little bit in your lats just for the stability of the bar, but really more of an isolation movement because you really want to focus mainly just on that hip extension. You're not going the full motion like a deadlift, really just bowing forward. You're gonna be flexing the hips, and then once you reach that really good stretch in the hamstrings, you are then extending in your hips, getting that good squeeze. So you're gonna get a massive stretch in your hamstrings at the bottom position, and then lifting that bar up, extending in your hips, getting a good squeeze in the glutes. Now, one mistake a lot of people make in this exercise is that they might round the back. What you really wanna do is over-exaggerate arching the back there. That's gonna pull your hips back and create a lot more stretch in the hamstrings, and that's what you want. So you really keep that nice arch back in there, or at least a flat back. Don't want you rounding in there, and then that's gonna create a lot of stretch and help you feel this exercise to its max potential, and that's what you want. Great exercise. And you can see in this stage 2, it changes a little bit in these last 2 days. The first day is day 1, day 2, posterior, anterior. It's gonna contain a lot more compounds. It's gonna focus on a little maybe bigger lifts. Now these next days, days 3 and 4, back to posterior today and then anterior tomorrow, it's kind of fine tuning a little bit. So there's gonna be a little bit more isolations. There's gonna be a little bit higher reps in the isolation. So we're trying to pinpoint certain areas of the posterior and anterior that we might have not pinpointed in the first 2 days. So very important in these last 2 days, and you can tell maybe going a little bit lighter in the weights on certain exercises, a little bit higher in the reps, but still maintaining that 4-set scheme.
We're gonna be moving on to another isolation exercise. This one is gonna be shoulder extensions. As Brandon said, the reps are gonna be a little higher now, so it's gonna be 10 reps. This isn't an exercise you see all the time. A lot of times people will work the posterior delts with an exercise such as face pulls, but shoulder extensions are one of our favorites for the way it isolates and targets the posterior deltoids. With this one, you're gonna realize very quickly that you're gonna wanna use a little bit less weight than maybe you think you can use, because with the posterior deltoids being a smaller muscle group, you can't really put as much load on them. So you wanna be wary of that. Of course, you really wanna have it slow and controlled on the way up. You don't want to swing it, so that's why you want to use a little bit lower of weight in order to get the full benefit of the exercise. You're going to go ahead and bow forward. As you can see, you're taking your fists until your arms are just about parallel to the floor. Get that really nice squeeze, and then bring them slowly back into the bottom position. Pretty easy movement, but again, you want to use weights that works for you to maximize it, and this may be one of your new favorites. I know it is one of me and Brandon's. Now this exercise, on the other hand, as you can see, we got a lot of weight on. It's French press. We're really focusing on the triceps. We're loading up heavy. Of course, a warm-up set is always advised. We're on to our working set, so it's going to be 4 sets, 10 reps. this is a great one for, as you can see, big time tricep development. And we're trying to grow those triceps. There we go.
What we got next is the shoulder retraction. Now there's many movements that the trapezius will help with. There's elevation, retraction, depression, and rotation. So this one is pinpointing the retraction movement of the trapezius, and that's really focusing on more of the mid to lower trapezius, because the trapezius muscle is very large. There's an upper, middle, and lower portion of it. With this one, we're trying to pinpoint target more the middle section. So instead of a typical shrug where you're elevating your shoulders, we're actually gonna be pulling our shoulders back and together. And you'll notice this a lot in our tutorials. Retract your scapula. Very important to help stabilize the shoulders, so the traps and the rhomboids are really to help pull those shoulders back and together, and in that position the shoulders are very stable for any kind of pressing motion. So with this one, it's strengthening those muscles. That's why this one is very important, because we're really targeting and pinpointing that movement specifically, because the middle trap can be missed out quite a bit. It's all about the shrugs. Everyone shrugs. They don't do a lot of retractions, so that's why this one is very important.
That logbook is filling up really nicely. I'm super excited about tracking all of my weights and my reps through the duration of the hypertrophy plan. Progressive overload, I can't stress enough, is so important if you want to see the full benefits of your work and of all this time you're putting in the gym. You want to track it with the goal of slowly going up in weight. We actually didn't have a logbook in one of our prior plans, and thankfully a lot of you said, hey, bring the logbook back. That's where I was tracking my weights. That's where I was seeing my progress. And that really made us go, that's awesome, because sometimes you don't know. You're like, are people using this? And you were, and we really appreciate that, and you really inspired me to be very vigilant myself with using this. This is the goal. I'm gonna check in with it through the duration of this plan, and I'm really excited to keep going with this thing.
As you can see, the donkey calf raise is a bit of a setup. We have one of these belts with a chain around it so we can add weight to it. Now, you'll see the donkey calf raise exercise done by the old schoolers. You'll see those guys in the 70s, Arnold, Franco, Lou. They always perform these, but usually they had a couple guys on their back. Well, you can do it a lot simply by just putting a weighted belt around you and put as much weight on you, unless you want a guy on your back, I don't know, it's up to you. But sometimes you just don't have people to sit on your back. So this is gonna be a better choice. And why would you be doing something like this? It's kind of a variation between maybe a seated and a standing calf raise. So you're more in that bent over position, just like so, with the weight right at your hips. You're bringing those heels down to get that good stretch in your calves, but you're also gonna be feeling it in the hamstrings too, because you're in this bent over position. So if you'll notice, if you get in this stretch right here with the heels down, and then you bend over, all of a sudden you're gonna feel that really intense stretch in those calves. So it's just creating more of that stretch in the calves. So as you bring it from the stretch position to the flex position or contracted position, it's just gonna be more stimulation in your calves. So it's just an easy way, an easy positioning to just change a typical exercise like the standing calf raise or the seated calf raise up just enough so that way you stimulate those calves and you add more growth in them.
It's time to become Superman once again for our final exercise of posterior, day 3, but the second time we're doing posterior this week. Again, great for the core, specifically lower back. Can't forget this one, like calves, it's kind of a neglected exercise. Well, we are making sure to include it. It's not being left out. It's a great way to end day number 3. We will see you again for the final day of stage 1. It's gonna be anterior, baby. Here we go. We're on the final day of stage 1. We're back to anterior. We're beginning with incline bench press. So we're focusing on the upper clavicular portion of the chest, one of our favorite exercises. It's a hot one today. Temperatures are gonna be reaching 105. We're trying to get this workout done as soon as we can. Really excited. We're almost done with stage 1. Let's kick some ass together.
Oh man, really trying to focus on reaching close to failure each set. And of course, increasing the weight, like Hudson's been saying, he's been logging all his weights, trying to increase that weight each week, really introducing that progressive overload, and that's how you're gonna get all the results and really maximize the hypertrophy. Now we go on to the kneeling sissy squat. So this one is really gonna be focusing and isolating the quadriceps. As you can see, you're just on your knees. You're leaning back in that full stretch in your quads, and then you're extending from there. So really it kind of replaces a leg extension machine. Obviously not everyone has a leg extension machine, so we're busting these out. So hitting those quads, baby. Yeah.
Again, that's a great thing. There's always an alternate variation of an exercise. So if you don't feel comfortable with sissy squats, or maybe you have a little bit of knee pain, which can affect certain people, you can always switch it up with a different one, such as the machine leg extensions. Standing single leg dumbbell raise. This one may look a little different. This is not an exercise you see a lot. Nevertheless, it's a good one compared with the prior exercise, the sissy squats. Both a little bit more unique. Now with this one, what you want to make sure and do, you want to stabilize the weight with your hand, but you don't want to assist it too much. You don't want to subconsciously begin curling it with your arm. You're only keeping it there to help stabilize the weight. This is really focusing on your leg. You want to bring your quad parallel to the floor, really flex, and then bring it down slowly back to the bottom position. Great exercise. But this one in particular will work your rectus femoris. So that is a muscle located in the quad. Just right kind of in here, and that's gonna help with hip flexion in there. So of course with the sissy squats, getting those quads. With this one, really targeting a part of the quads, really trying to pinpoint that rectus femoris area. And you'll notice in the beginning of this stage, the posterior, anterior, day 1 and 2, they're really focusing on, you know, more compound movements, really hitting a broader spectrum of the anterior and posterior. With these days 3 and 4, really working on these kind of smaller movements, these smaller muscle groups, to really just try to focus on not only the complete strength, hypertrophy, but also the aesthetics too. That wasn't Creed playing, by the way. It was our dirty little secret. Keep this between us, okay?
Definitely Creed playing.
That was definitely a Creed song. Fuck yeah. This is give you pumps like you wouldn't believe. We're moving on to underhand dumbbell flies. With this one, you really want to almost think of you are tracing a pyramid, because what you don't want it to do is turn into an underhand front raise, focusing more on the delts. We're focusing more on the chest. We're trying to maximize the chest in this one. So you're bringing it up in that pyramid-like position. You're squeezing with the dumbbells together, and then you're slowly bringing them back until the dumbbells are at your sides. If you haven't tried this one, we highly recommend it. It is a great way, as Brandon was saying, with this second anterior day, to really focus on some of the more smaller muscle groups, really isolating them and helping to develop them to their maximum potential.
I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. Yeah.
Damn, Creed just found a new singer. Scott Straff. Yes. The biceps, man. It's a feel-good exercise. If you haven't experienced the pump, and if you have experienced the pump, you know what I'm talking about. It's something that brings you to the gym. It's that rush, it's that full feeling, and that is why we always like to include exercises such as bicep curls in our exercises, because they just add that element of fun into the exercise. Of course, they help with aesthetics, but it also makes the workouts much more than a chore, and that's what we're all about, making it a lifestyle. And with the gym lifestyle, you gotta have the bicep curls.
Would you say bicep curls takes you higher?
I would say bicep tails takes you higher. To a place where blind men lift. Back to AT raises, of course, this being the anterior day, we're not forgetting the lower leg. We're just working a part that's maybe neglected even more than calf raises are. So, perfect way to end the final day of stage 1. We hope you enjoyed it. We're gonna move right on to stage 2. We're gonna make the most of this hypertrophy plan. Pick it up if you haven't gotten a chance. If you have, thanks for supporting us. We will see you soon in stage 2. Yeah. So rollouts, one of our favorite core exercises. If you don't have the ab roller wheel or you're at a gym without one, you can easily substitute it by just loading up a barbell and kind of using it the same way. Of course, you don't want to have like the hexagonal plates, you got to have the round ones or you're going to have a real bumpy ride. But if you got the round weights, load it up just like you would like a bench press, put it on the ground, roll it out as we're doing. Excellent substitution, excellent exercise.